Happy New Year and welcome back to the Scarlet Faithful podcast, the first episode of 2024 coming to you on Tuesday afternoon, January 2nd. And this is a rapid reaction to the news that Minnesota quarterback Athan Kaliakmanis has transferred to Rutgers football. Doesn't come as a big shock. He has the connection to offensive coordinator Kirk Ciarrocca, visited a couple weeks ago, hadn't heard him of visiting anywhere else. Makes a lot of sense, I think, on both sides. Wanted to get into that, also what it means for Gavin Wimsatt and the program and the quarterback situation as a whole. So let's just talk about Kaliakmanis. Ciarrocca was the offensive coordinator at Minnesota 2017 to 2019, developed Tanner Morgan, left, came back. 2022, Kaliakmanis was already with the program. Tanner Morgan gets hurt. Kaliakmanis wins the job, played pretty well as a redshirt freshman under Ciarrocca. We'll get into the numbers a little bit. Then was the full-time starter this past season with Ciarrocca now at Rutgers. Did not have as good of a season, struggled with consistency, struggled with accuracy, which I know, it's been a mixed bag of reactions leading up to today in terms of Rutgers fans and how they feel about this. I think it is a little bit of a reality moment in terms of understanding that. I think in terms of what Rutgers can do right now, transfer portal-wise, I think it's a good move. I talked about NIL right before Christmas. There was a big article in the Star-Ledger, Keith Sargent, about Rutgers' NIL struggles and their inability to compete with the top programs in the transfer portal. I think quarterback is an obvious position where you can see that. A lot of people were clamoring for Kyle McCord from Ohio State, New Jersey native. Father played at Rutgers. He went to Syracuse, got a pretty significant NIL deal there. Rutgers just can't compete at that level right now, for better or for worse. And I think that Greg Schiano and the coaching staff have proven to be resourceful in terms of the transfer portal. Just look at another Minnesota product, Flip Dixon, who had 30 games of experience at Minnesota prior to coming to Rutgers, starts arguably their best defender this past year. So Kaliakmanis, in terms of his numbers, he is not that much more accurate than Wimsatt, but he is more accurate by a decent margin because Wimsatt was the least accurate quarterback in college football, FBS this past year, just 47.8%. Kaliakmanis was 53.1% last year, 54.1% the year before with Ciarrocca. Inconsistency was a problem. Minnesota was up and down this year. They also did not have Mohamed Ibrahim, who was arguably the best running back in Minnesota history. So you're going to have Kyle Monangai back. You're going to have an identity on offense. It's going to be interesting to see, first of all, competition-wise, right? Gavin Wimsatt did announce before the bowl game that he was returning. You have to imagine that, Schiano's very good about being transparent. He talks about this a lot, and is part of what he cites why he retains a lot of players. He tells it like it is. I can't imagine this is a shock to Gavin Wimsatt, and he made that statement probably knowing Kaliakmanis was coming or likely to come. Of course, things can change. Anything's possible. And you also have the spring, right? Spring practice, and we've seen quarterbacks in other programs leave after spring camp. If they particularly didn't, win the job outright or maybe lost the job, they end up leaving. Not saying that's going to happen in this case, but it's college football. Anything could happen. But right now, I think it's fair to assume that there will be a true, legit quarterback competition between Gavin Wimsatt and Kaliakmanis. They're both similar in size. Kaliakmanis is 6'4", Wimsatt 6'3". On the face of it, Wimsatt is more mobile. He rushed for over 500 yards this year. Ciarrocca really leaned on him at times. Wasn't as effective at the end of the year. He was less accurate and didn't run as much. But he had some big moments on the ground this year. That touchdown against Virginia Tech was, I believe, 35 yards. The 80-yard back-breaking touchdown against Indiana. He struggled, I think, at times in terms of reading the play, making the right, read in terms of where to run. Kaliakmanis didn't run much at all at Minnesota this past year, but interestingly enough, he did run a little bit more under Ciarrocca. He had several games where he had 4 to 7 rushes and averaged over 6 yards a clip. He's not, on the face of it, a barn burner per speak. He's not going to be as fast as Wimsatt, but I do think he's more mobile than I think people give him credit for being. And I think how he will be utilized with Ciarrocca might be a little different at Minnesota. He'll obviously also potentially benefit from a stronger running game. I think more consistency having Monungai back. But it's going to be interesting. I think, a couple of things that stick out to me. The end of 2022, the last game he played for Ciarrocca was at Wisconsin. It was Thanksgiving weekend. They went into Camp Randall. Obviously, Wisconsin was having a bad season. Went into Camp Randall, won 23-16, big rivalry game. He was 19 of 29, 319 yards, 65.5% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That is the Kaliakmanis that Rutgers is banking on getting. That's what they that's obviously what Ciarrocca remembers. He also, he overall stats wise, he was about 50% accuracy every other game that he played for Ciarrocca. Was not, particularly impressive stat wise that year, but that was the game that's obviously stuck in everyone's heads in terms of what he can be. And then this past year, and in the bowl game, actually, that was actually the last game I misspoke. He won that game against Syracuse. He was 7 of 9, 80 yards, did not do a ton, but was very accurate, no mistakes. So those were the last 2 performances for Ciarrocca. And obviously it left on a pretty positive note. And then the 23 season, he was up and down, but overall, I mean, his stats, listen, his completion percentage, like I said, was, 5 points higher than Wimsatt, 53.1%. Yardage was about the same. So his yards per completion was less than Wimsatt, 1,838 yards on a 156 completions. Wimsatt was 117.35 yards on 138 completions. Wimsatt was 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Kaliakmanis, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Also had 2 games of note where he was stuck out, where he threw for 3 touchdowns each against Purdue. And it was also Illinois, where he had games of 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So that was back-to-back games for him where he did that. That was late in the season. That was in November. That was Illinois at home, a 1-point loss, and then at Purdue, a 19-point loss. He was not terribly accurate in those games, under 50% total combined. But again, 0 picks, six touchdowns, not bad. And finished the season, his last 6 games, he had 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And I think that, the hope is obviously year 2 under Ciarrocca, more development, understanding the system better. They think he's going to be better than he was this past year at Minnesota. Wimsatt, this provides an opportunity to continue to develop, gives him a true competition. I know that people wanted a bigger name per se, but I think you have 2 Big Ten starters that are going to compete. Rutgers hasn't had that. Vedral was sparingly played and started at Nebraska. He was a positive addition for many reasons, but this is is the stiffest competition, just in the sense of having 2 Big Ten starting quarterbacks competing for the same spot. Johnny Shepard will be in his 2nd season with the program. AJ Cereso will be in his 1st. Have to think that Cereso will probably redshirt at this point. I know I saw people get upset. People are dismissing Shepard. Obviously, he has a chance here. But I think, Kaliakmanis has 2 years of eligibility left. Wimsatt should as well. So this is going to be really interesting, and it's a positive. The fact that I think I was vocal before last season that I thought they should have brought in a transfer portal quarterback to compete with Wimsatt. They did not. Thankfully, he was healthy the whole season. Obviously, he struggled at times. You can't have a sub 50 completion percentage if you want to be successful long term as an offense, and he's got to get better there. And I'm not saying just all of a sudden competition is going to make him more accurate, but I think that this gives the staff leverage, and they get a quarterback that they know, that the offensive coordinator obviously believes in. This is not taking a flyer on somebody that's coming from a lower level. This is not taking a flyer on, a high school kid that sat at a Power 5 program for 2 years and, they don't know how he's going to do in competition. So, even though Kaliakmanis has been inconsistent in his career, they know his strengths, they know his weaknesses. There's actually a positive in that. rather than him being completely green. So, is he an upgrade for Wimsatt? I think he can be. I think that, can Wimsatt still win the job and be the starter? I do. So I think at the end of the day, Rutgers is again, they have options now. And I think that that's a positive. The Big Ten West is not the Big Ten East, but divisions are gone now. Minnesota is on the schedule next year, but I think that this is going to provide the stuff. And who knows? I mean, this could be the type of thing where I'm not saying that ideally you want a platoon, but this also gives legitimate, safety in the fact that, if one does win the job and goes down, you have a backup that's proven. Again, neither has lit up, the scoreboard, but Kaliakmanis has there's enough there that you could see the potential. And he doesn't have a huge arm. He's not the fastest, but he obviously has an understanding of Ciarrocca's system. Mistake-wise, he only had one game of more than one interception. He had less games of 0 interceptions opposed to Wimsatt, but 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions in the Big Ten as a starter. He played UNC also in non-conference play. How did he do in that game? Not a great game. Just 38% accuracy, interception. Let's see. What other games stick out? I mean, against Louisiana, he was 86% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, a pick. He struggled against Iowa, but they did win. No mistakes there. Had a good game against Michigan State, 14-22, 200 yards, touchdown, and a pick. Like I said, had the success. Even Ohio State, he completed 58% of his passes against Ohio State, had 1 pick. And Wisconsin last game of the season had 57% completion percentage, touchdown, and a pick. So he's got real experience. He's going to challenge Wimsatt. Obviously, he's coming here to win the job. He's coming to play for a coordinator he knows. So I think that all in all, Rutgers has put themselves in a better position going into 2024. The staff owed this team, all those seniors returning, they owed them this in terms of bringing in a portal quarterback that can challenge for the starting position. They owed him that. All those guys returning, they needed to maximize the position as best they could. You could argue they could have done a better job of that, but at the end of the day, listen, they could have done a lot worse too. They could have done a lot worse. So I think it's a win-win. I think it puts the program in a position to take a step forward, whether it's Wimsatt or Kaliakmanis. It gives them a more proven backup. It improves competition. It's going to challenge both quarterbacks. And again, if a Johnny Shepard ends up winning it, I mean, that's awesome. Then you have 2 guys proven behind him to back him up. So we'll see. But I think you have to imagine it's going to be Kaliakmanis or Wimsatt starting. It's a critical year. People say the schedule is easier. It's easier because you don't have Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State on the schedule, but it's not easy schedule at all. You're talking about at Virginia Tech, Washington at home, at Nebraska, at USC. You also have UCLA and forgetting one other team, Wisconsin, on the schedule in a 6-game stretch. So, Michigan State's going to be improved. You go there. You want to see them improve off that 6-6 regular season, but it's not a given by any means. The defense has almost everyone back other than Max Melton. They should hopefully take a step forward. How big a one remains to be seen. The offense we know has to get better, and this move certainly gives them an opportunity to do that. You need more receivers. They got Damir Hill, the FCS All-American from Monmouth. That was big. You have a lot of younger receivers that have the potential, hopefully can step up. You have to improve the tight end position. Offensive line has to continue to gel. But you have that rock in Monungai. You also have Sam Brown back, who has, I thought, looked pretty good in that bowl game. So there's some pieces there, and I think Kaliakmanis has potential. And I think that familiarity, that connectedness with Ciarrocca knowing what he's getting in Kaliakmanis, obviously saw enough that he believes in him. Obviously this season happened for Kaliakmanis, and you can't dismiss that by any measure. But at the same time, he did get another year under his belt, under another coordinator. He's coming back now to Ciarrocca. He's going to have a situation a little bit more similar to what he had 2 years ago with a Big Ten, top running back. So I think there's a lot of positives for him. No word on whether his brother, the receiver, is coming. Probably have to figure he will. But he is unproven. But again, could end up being a factor. But I think it's a smart move on all parties. I think everyone's going to benefit from this, and we have a real competition, and that's what I think was needed. And I also think this is a situation where, whether you like it or not, like, this is a situation that Wimsatt should stay. He should compete. He should want to win this job. They're not bringing in a blue chip quarterback that's ultimately, obvious. Like, if they brought in McCord, I think the writing was on the wall for Wimsatt. This shows Wimsatt, all right, you're going to continue to get better. We're going to continue to develop you. But at the same time, it's going to be a quarterback competition. That's fair based on a 47.8% completion percentage. Again, I still believe in Wimsatt. I like his upside. I think he can become a better quarterback. I think that they could have utilized him a little bit better this year. But, now we're going to see which quarterback can win the job. And again, like I said, very possible that they're both going to play this next coming season. So you improved your depth. You improved, I think, the ceiling of the offense overall. And I think that Ciarrocca, he's got two guys that he knows what he can get out of them, what he needs to get out of them, how to work with them. And there's a benefit there. So thank you for listening and watching this rapid reaction. I'll have plenty more on what this means and more on football as well as we go into a very big offseason, one with positive momentum for the program. And thanks for listening and watching the Scarlet Faithful podcast once again.